The air in Maui hung thick and sweet, heavy with the scent of plumeria, but all I could taste was the bitter tang of betrayal clinging to the back of my throat. 1 minute, I was scrolling through her phone, a mundane task of uploading her vaccine passport. The next, the world tilted on its axis. Each flirtatious message from him, splashed across the screen like venom, was a fresh wave of nausea. Olivia, my soon-to-be ex-wife, the woman who had spent years subtly chipping away at my confidence with her condescending remarks and dismissive sighs, was still neck-deep in an affair with her sleazy colleague. But this time, there would be no shouting, no pathetic pleas for her to stay. This time, I would be the architect of her downfall, the silent storm that would shatter the carefully constructed facade of her perfect life, leaving her to face the wreckage of her own making. I deleted the damning thread, blocked his number with a cold finality, and then watched her unravel over the next torturous day, a frantic dance of guilt and paranoia as she desperately tried to contact her forbidden lover, blissfully unaware that her game was already over. The silent plane ride home, her trembling hands betraying the turmoil within, was a prelude to the quiet detonation I had meticulously planned. I gave her 3 more days of false security, time for me to gather the remaining fragments of her deception, and then, with the calm precision I never knew I possessed, I dismantled her world, piece by painful piece. Now, Olivia is just a ghost in the halls of my memory, a cautionary tale whispered on the winds of my newfound freedom. Olivia. And I had built a life, or so I thought, in the vibrant, often cutthroat world of San Francisco. I was an architect, a profession I loved, finding solace in the precise lines and tangible creations that sprang from my imagination. Olivia, on the other hand, was a force of nature in real estate, driven, ambitious, and relentlessly focused on success. She possessed a sharp wit that often veered into condescension, a trait I had, in the early days, mistaken for endearing confidence. As the years passed, however, her remarks became sharper, her sighs more frequent, her belief in her own superiority an undeniable wedge between us. Honestly, Michael, that presentation was adequate, she'd say after an important meeting, her tone suggesting I should be grateful for such a generous assessment. At dinner parties with her high-powered friends, I often felt like an afterthought, a quiet accessory to her dazzling social performance. My accomplishments were consistently minimized, my opinions politely dismissed. I had slowly begun to internalize her narrative, questioning my own abilities and dimming my own light to avoid her subtle but persistent disapproval. The first crack in our carefully plastered foundation appeared just weeks before the world shut, down in the spring of 2020. A carelessly left open laptop on the kitchen counter revealed a series of messages, late-night exchanges filled with a sickeningly saccharine intimacy between Olivia and a name I vaguely recognized as Richard, a colleague from her real estate firm. The casual mentions of clandestine lunches and after-work drinks suddenly coalesced into a horrifying picture. The lockdown forced us into an uncomfortable proximity. The initial shock and hurt gave way to strained conversations, attempts at reconciliation, fueled by the shared anxiety of the pandemic and the suffocating closeness of our confinement. We talked, or rather, Olivia talked, offering explanations that felt hollow and rehearsed. I wanted to believe her, desperately clinging to the hope that our years together meant something. For a while, a fragile truce settled between us. We cooked together, watched countless movies, and even rediscovered some of the easy camaraderie that had drawn us together in the first place. But beneath the surface, a seed of doubt had been planted. I started noticing subtle cues, the way she'd clutch her phone protectively, the hushed whispers when she took calls in another room, the almost imperceptible flinch when Richard's name was mentioned in passing by a mutual acquaintance during a video call. I began to keep my own quiet record of these moments, a subconscious preparation for the inevitable. As the world slowly began to emerge from the grip of the pandemic, we decided to take a trip to Maui, a gesture Olivia presented as a way to solidify our renewed commitment. The lush landscapes and the promise of relaxation felt like a balm to my weary soul. We spent the first few days enjoying the sun, the surf, and the forced intimacy of our vacation. I genuinely tried to believe that we could rebuild, that the infidelity was a regrettable detour and not a fundamental flaw in our relationship. The illusion shattered on our last day. We were packing for our return flight, and the requirement for digital vaccine passports loomed. Olivia's phone battery was dead, and without thinking, she handed it to me. "Can you log into my account on yours, honey? Just need to upload the QR code." As I waited for her phone to power on, a notification popped up on the screen. It was a text message from an unsaved number, but the content hit me like a physical blow. "Missing you already, my little firecracker. Can't wait until we can sneak away again." My fingers froze. I unlocked the phone and scrolled through the recent messages with this unknown contact. It was him, Richard. The language, the pet names, the frequency of their communication. It was undeniable. They had been texting throughout our entire vacation. Every smile she had offered me, every shared sunset, every whispered "I love you" was a lie. A performance masking her continued betrayal. A cold fury began to simmer within me, a stark contrast to the agonizing heartbreak I had felt months earlier. This time, there would be no tears, no pleading. The switch had flipped. I knew with absolute certainty that I was done. But I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her in our idyllic Hawaiian setting, giving her the satisfaction of a dramatic scene. Instead, a strange sense of calm washed over me. I realized I needed to gather more information, to be strategic. I deleted the entire text thread with Richard and blocked his number. The next 24 hours were surreal. Olivia, completely unaware that I had read her messages, grew increasingly agitated. She would periodically glance at her phone, a flicker of anxiety in her eyes. She subtly tried to send messages, her brow furrowing when they didn't go through. She couldn't ask me directly if I had touched her phone, terrified that it would expose her continued infidelity. To watch her squirm, her forced cheerfulness crumbling under the weight of her secret, brought a grim satisfaction. The guilt was eating her alive, and she couldn't understand why her lifeline had been severed. The many hours of the flight back to San Francisco were excruciatingly silent. Olivia was a bundle of nervous energy, her leg bouncing incessantly, her hands fidgeting. She knew something was coming. The shift in my demeanor, though subtle, hadn't escaped her notice. The easygoing vacation mode had vanished, replaced by a quiet, impenetrable reserve. Back home, I played the part of the oblivious husband for 3 more days. I went to work, came home, and engaged in the usual mundane routines. But behind the facade, I was meticulously gathering evidence. I checked our phone bills, discovering a pattern of calls and texts to Richard's number, even after our initial reconciliation. I accessed our shared cloud storage, finding hidden folders containing email exchanges filled with their illicit rendezvous and whispered promises. I even managed to retrieve some deleted messages from an old tablet she rarely used. With each piece of evidence I uncovered, my resolve hardened. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was now overshadowed by a steely determination. I consulted with a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who listened patiently as I laid out my case. She advised me on the best way to proceed, ensuring I protected my assets and my future. Finally, the day arrived when I was ready. I had packed a bag with essentials and secured a small apartment. I waited until Olivia came home from work, her usual confident stride a little less pronounced, her smile a touch too bright. "Olivia," I said calmly, my voice devoid of emotion. "We need to talk." She looked at me, a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. "About what, Michael?" I handed her a neatly bound folder. "These are divorce papers. I've cited infidelity. The evidence is all there." Her face drained of color. The carefully constructed mask of composure crumbled, replaced by a look of utter shock and disbelief. "Michael, what are you talking about?" "I know about Richard," I said simply. "I've known for a while. The Hawaii trip just confirmed what I already suspected. The explosion I had anticipated didn't happen. Instead, a wave of panic washed over her. She tried to deny it, to backtrack, to offer the same tired excuses she had used before. But this time, I didn't engage. I remained calm, cool, and collected. The stark contrast to her frantic energy, a testament to my newfound inner strength. "It's over, Olivia," I said. my voice firm but quiet. "I've moved out. My lawyer will be in touch with yours." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The divorce proceedings were swift and relatively painless, thanks to the overwhelming evidence I had gathered. Our social circles, initially buzzing with gossip, quickly took sides. Olivia's affair became public knowledge, damaging her reputation in the competitive real estate market. Listings she had once confidently secured started slipping away. Richard, facing the potential for professional repercussions, distanced himself from her, leaving her to face the fallout alone. I watched it all unfold from a distance, a detached observer of the drama she had created. There was a part of me that felt a twinge of sadness, a lingering echo of the love I had once felt. But it was quickly drowned out by a wave of relief and a burgeoning sense of freedom. Olivia, accustomed to being in control, to dictating the narrative, was blindsided by my quiet and decisive actions. She had underestimated me, mistaking my kindness for weakness, my quiet nature for a lack of awareness. She had believed she could manipulate the situation, just as she had subtly manipulated me for years. But this time, I had taken back my power, refusing to be the victim in her carefully crafted drama. The karma, as the saying goes, wasn't a sudden dramatic event. It was the slow, steady erosion of the life she had built on a foundation of deceit. It was the loss of respect from her peers, the dwindling of her professional success, the realization that her actions had consequences. As for me, I found a quiet joy in my newfound independence. I focused on my work, pouring my energy into my designs and rediscovering the passion that Olivia had unknowingly tried to extinguish. I reconnected with old friends, pursued forgotten hobbies, and slowly, surely, began to rebuild my sense of self-worth. Olivia is now but a memory, a faded photograph in the album of my past. Her belittling remarks no longer echo in my mind. Her attempts to diminish me hold no power. I have moved on, not with bitterness or resentment, but with a quiet strength and a profound appreciation for the peace I have finally found. The view from here is clear, and the future, for the first time in a long time, feels entirely mine. The scent of plumeria in Hawaii may have initially carried the stench of betrayal, but now, when I recall that trip, I also remember the quiet resolve that bloomed within me. The turning point where I finally chose myself and began the journey toward a life free from her shadow. And that, I realize, is the sweetest revenge of all.